Mop-up operations are underway in KwaZulu-Natal following heavy rains and flooding, which has claimed the lives of 7 people. Hundreds have been left homeless after the heavy rains wreaked havoc in Inanda and surrounding areas. Residents there are pleading with government to relocate them to safer places. eThekwini Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda has promised affected residents that they will soon be relocated. And the Mayor joins us virtually from KwaZulu-Natal right now. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your time this evening. Just on a point of order for those watching, the Mayor didn't dress up for this interview. He's doing this interview just after attending the Boxing South Africa Awards that were held in Durban tonight. So we do thank you for your time. But tonight, as we speak, there are families that are without a home, without their belongings because of these devastating floods underway. Mop-up operations very much in flow. What is the latest information you can give us about the assistance for those left destitute?
Indeed, since Tuesday, our teams have been working with the affected communities, especially in Dube Village, Amaoti, the areas, Claremont, that were also affected, Folweni, Ward 101, Mayville. Those are the areas which were hit hard, and Phoenix and other surrounding areas like Verulam. So our teams are all over to try and give support to families, relocate those who are willing to be relocated. We are aware that some families have decided that they will be accommodated through their neighbors, through their relatives, so they are at liberty to do that. Our teams, together with the NGOs, NPOs, CPOs, have been coming on board, and private companies to offer meals, prepared meals, some offering food parcels. Department of Social Development in the province have also been doing a very good job in terms of being responsive, especially for counseling, to ensure that there is therapy for those families that have been severely affected, but also providing the help like social relief and many other interventions that they put together. So we are on course in terms of working with the families. As you know, that we were still preparing, we have already started the process of rebuilding permanent structures for those who were affected in the previous year floods. We are also going to be ensuring that we incorporate the families that are really located in floodplain, in dangerous zones, so that we can continue to save lives of our people. And we wish to express our heartfelt condolences to families who have lost their loved ones, and those who are injured, we wish them a speedy recovery in hospital.
Now, I believe there's been a report or a statement released by the Provincial Department of Corruptive Governance and Traditional Affairs, just in terms of the numbers, that the eThekwini Metro did bear the brunt of the devastation. Approximately 70 houses completely destroyed there, and a further 110 houses partially damaged. And it's affected over 550 people, leaving 151 individuals homeless. And it does seem to correlate with the areas that you've mentioned there. We do understand there's also an issue with power or a provision of electricity in some of those areas. Do you know anything about that you're able to share?
Indeed, our teams from Tuesday, even yesterday, they've been there working tirelessly to restore services because our electricity was affected. Some water pipes were washed away. Also include the bridges and some of the roads where our teams are really doing their best, their level best, to ensure that we reinstate services to our communities. Indeed, it is very difficult for us as a city, as you know, that it is hardly a 6-month period that really we find ourselves in this very same situation. So we are developing the resilience that makes us go forward. We understand the difficulties that our communities are faced with, but there's no other way without calling for the collaboration of the private sector, the NGOs and our government to become more responsive to the plight of those who get affected and who become the victims of these heavy rains and the storms that we received in the city and the recent tornadic activity.
I was just looking at pictures now where it shows a normal home in one of those areas that a normal community that you've mentioned, and you've got whole pieces of the ground that have just disappeared right next door to the house. But there's washing that's hanging there, and it seems that household is just going about their daily business, even though almost the ground has disappeared from under them. And that must be quite a dangerous setup for some people. I wanted to ask you about the preparedness for this kind of thing, because your municipality would have experienced this quite sadly not so long ago. Yes, you've developed the resilience, but have your different departments learned from that awful experience in terms of readiness, and also those early warning systems that we learned the last time around really needed to be in place to try and ensure that more people were able to get to safety before the floods really hit?
Indeed, we are a climate change activist city, as you know, that we are also leading in Africa. But we are working very close with different stakeholders, the NGOs, the private sector, and civil society organizations. Today, we held our own workshop on climate change, which took a clear direction, taking from the climate change action plan that we launched in 2020, where all departments are required to become more responsive to bring interventions, especially on the issues of engineering, to ascertain that the way we developed our roads, the way we developed our infrastructure, it's also more responding to the challenges that are presented by climate change. We've been visiting other countries. There are new things that we have learned and innovations that even the way you develop your road should also be of some of the interventions that will enable you during the heavy storms, heavy rains, that you are able to direct water to a particular direction and also recycle that water for the usage by the community. But we are also intensifying our education awareness because we know that people are still disposing many objects which are not supposed to be disposed to our drainage system, which when these heavy rains come, it gives us more challenges. But also the extension of rivers and streams by those who are conducting illegal mining. We are also intensifying our campaign, not only awareness, but also enforcement, so that people have the right to mine in our areas, so that we do not expand the roads, we do not expand the rivers, and as well as the streams in our areas, which at the end of the day will present challenges whenever heavy rains come. So this is part of a collective, a societal issue that requires government, private sector, the NGOs, everybody to come together and work with us, especially business people who are really disposing dangerous things and objects to our own infrastructure. You'll recall that Umhlanga Beach was recently closed as a result of the clocking of our own pump station in that area due to what has been disposed to our infrastructure. So there's a level of education that we want to elevate to our communities, that it is not a government responsibility to deal with the issues of climate change. It is indeed a societal responsibility. Let us all work together, educate our children, educate everybody in churches, the traditional leadership to come on board, because once we do so, we'll then be in a position to ensure that our adaptation and mitigation programs that we are investing in as a city, they are indeed yielding positive results. We are cleaning our streams as part of the campaign. We've recruited more volunteers. We also have international funding to do so, but we are also calling for other businesses to come on board and invest resources. We've been participating in many international platforms that also include the recent COP27 that was held in Egypt. In all the sessions, 5 sessions that I participated as a mayor of eThekwini, we've been raising a call that in Africa we only emit 2% to pollute our air. So what is important is that the developing countries who have got no resources, especially here in Africa, we need more funding for adaptation. So as we speak, the funding is seated at 7% in the world. So we are calling for the developed countries to put more and invest more resources to adaptation programs, so that we can be able to save people's lives, also raising awareness to our communities.
Now, Mr. Mayor, on one side of Durban, there will be people still mopping up their lives after these horrendous floods and that tornado that really seemed to come out of nowhere. But in another part of Durban this weekend, there'll be a party like no other. It's time for the JMB Met this weekend. And that, I suppose, is just part and parcel of day-to-day life in South Africa, the extremes that we live through. But this event is going to be very important as that tourism industry in your part of the world still continues to get back on its feet.
Yes, indeed. We started to see some positive indicators during the Easter holidays, where we've seen we're anticipating that at least hotel expectancy should be standing at 60%, but we're able to be seated at 63%. So it shows that the tourism industry is now bouncing back. It's also going to be generating jobs for the youth, more than 1,500 jobs during this major event, Hollywood Best Durban July. And we are also going to be having a good injection in terms of our GDP as a city. As we speak, people are using different apps to find accommodation because people are already here in Durban. Things are happening in Durban. People are enjoying themselves, and tomorrow it is a big day, and people will fully participate in all the activities that will be staged in different areas. We have expanded our footprint so that people do not only crowd the Greyville area, but in deep rural areas and townships, in the CPD, there will be a lot of activities and festivities that will be really drawing eyes of the people, especially those who want to spend money. We also have more places where they can be able to spend money in our city.
Yeah, and the young people would say social media is about to be lit this weekend, which of course is for the Durban July, not the JMB Met. My apologies, the Cape Townian and me took over there. Thank you so much for your time this evening. That's eThekwini Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda joining us live there from Durban. He's dressed to the nines because he's speaking to us just after attending the big Boxing SA Awards in Durban. We value